You are Locked On Jets POSTCAST. Part of Locked On Sports New York on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Somehow, on a day that the New York Jets do not punt, they only score 9 points and lose to the Los Angeles Rams. Welcome into this Locked On Jets POSTCAST. I am your host, Chris Schubert, longtime Jets fan, Jets podcaster, radio host. We're going to have to unpack this one. I'm still not sure how this game took place, but gather around, sit down, grab your favorite beverage, join us for the next half hour or so as we try to dive into this 19-9 loss for the New York Jets to the Los Angeles Rams. This edition of the Locked On Jets POSTCAST brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $250 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. I don't know. If you know, maybe you can let me know in the comments. You can try to piece this together for me. I don't know how the Jets lost this football game, because despite this game being 9-9, despite this game being 9-6 at halftime, it felt like this was a game that the New York Jets were in control of. The offense, for what felt like the third straight game, coming out of the Miami game, even though that was a loss in overtime, the win against Jacksonville, the first half here against the Rams, felt like you were starting to see this offense string together performance after performance after performance. And yet you looked up at halftime, the team's only up 9-6. You're watching this game in the second half, and you're watching the defense fly around and make plays, even though they didn't have Sauce Gardner, even though they didn't have Quinn Williams clogging up the middle. Really felt like it was going to be an easy day for Kyren Williams. Now, stat-wise, it did end up being an easy day for him. Over 100 yards, another touchdown. But they were just coming up with plays. They were getting off the field. They were slowing down this Rams offense. The offense was moving the ball in between the 20s pretty well. And yet, they just never pulled away. And when you're a team like the New York Jets, who have seemingly given games away over and over and over again this season, you open the door when you don't pull away, when you don't slam the door shut. You open the door for the other team to come storming through. You open the door for those bad things to happen. And that's what happened in this game. And you look up and you're down 19-9, and then you try to kick a field goal to make it a one-possession game. You miss that. That's all she wrote. Game over. So the Jets fall to 4-11. There will not be a 2-game winning streak. They will not start a winning streak here to close the season. It is right back to where we were with this team a couple of weeks ago. And I thought coming into this game that this was going to be tough. And the first drive kind of gave you that inclination, because with no Quinn Williams clogging up the middle, you thought that the Rams were going to be able to gash them. And the motion and the play action and the Rams saying, hey, we're going to get the ball out in space to Puka Nacua. We're going to get the ball out in space to our tight ends, to our running backs, and we're going to ask the Jets to make a play. We're going to ask the Jets to tackle us. You could kind of see on that first drive the recipe for where the Rams walk into MetLife Stadium and walk out with a victory relatively simply. And that wasn't the case. The Jets defense stood on their head. They answered the call early, and they then got the ball back. And it's weird, because we've talked about starting fast with this team. We've asked this team to start fast, both on defense, not allowing those touchdown drives to start games and to set your offense back. But we've also talked about starting fast with the offense. Hey, get the ball, score, give yourself an early lead, let your defense play ahead. Don't take 2 quarters for your offense to fire up and get into things. Saw that against Jacksonville a week ago. The offense was good at the beginning. They started fast. And you get the ball to start the game, your first offensive drive after your defense stands on their head. You get the ball at your 1-yard line, and you're thinking, this is it. This is the recipe. 3 and out, short field for the Rams. They're going to take over. They're going to score, and the snowball falls downhill. You've seen enough of these Jets games before to kind of have a feel how these things are going to go. Yet they go right down the field on a massive 99-yard drive, and they take the lead. They miss the extra point in very typical Jets fashion, but they march right down the field. 14 plays, 99 yards. They take 8 minutes and 22 seconds off the clock. It was slow. It was methodical. It got everybody involved. You're looking up. There's Breece Hall in open space, making plays in the run game. Offensive line, really great job today. We're going to get into them a little bit later on in the show. And disappointing injury to Olu Fashanu, and we'll have to hear after words from Jeff Ulbrich. I mean, they immediately ruled him out with that foot injury. That does not seem good for Olu to be finishing the season here in his rookie campaign. But holes opened up in the running game. Garrett Wilson's involved. Devontae Adams is involved. You got the tight ends involved. Tyler Conklin is making plays. It felt like a well-run, well-organized script to start the game. Credit to Todd Downing. Credit to Aaron Rodgers. They felt like they were in sync. They felt like they were in flow. They were patient. They were deliberate. And they just marched slowly down the field. Again, the Rams are playing for a lot. A Rams win, the Cardinals lose. Cardinals are playing as we're doing this postcast. The Cardinals lose, Rams win. Cardinals are eliminated from the playoffs. Moves the Rams one step closer to winning the NFC West and hosting a home playoff game. So a lot on the line for them. And so you just methodically march right down the field, 14 plays, 99 yards, and you take an early lead. And from there, the Jets were in control. Long drives. I mean, their drive to end the half was a 15-play, 6-minute drive. They then started the second half with a drive that was 9 minutes and 45 seconds. They took up over a quarter's worth of time in this game without the Rams seeing the ball. Defense was off the field for the New York Jets, and their offense was just slow in a good way and methodical. And they kept the Rams, their strength, their offense, off the field. So you just wondered how this game could be this close. You wondered how the Rams were just one drive away from closing into this game. You wonder how the Jets lose this game when they don't punt. Not a single punt in this game. And then you're reminded that this team is the New York Jets. There are two stats that I will share with you here on the other side that show you how only the New York Jets can do things like they do and lead to results like we've seen today. Other teams, these things don't happen to them. I don't know what it is, but it's the New York Jets, and the New York Jets way just sometimes gives you weird results. So we will get into that here on the other side. A lot more to get into from this loss to the Los Angeles Rams. Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. Whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports, PrizePicks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. When your picks hit, PrizePicks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. Download the PrizePicks apps today and use code LOCKEDONNFL in all caps to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. PrizePicks, run your game. Make sure you are subscribed to us here on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel for these postcasts after each and every of your New York teams are in action. I've got you covered for the remainder of the season on the Jets side of things. Jay Berman's got you covered on the Giants side of things. He's also got you covered for this fun Knicks season that we're having, and both of us will be back during baseball. He's got you covered on the Yankee side of things, and I will have you covered for the Mets season. Both of those teams should be very good for the baseball season, unlike the football counterparts so far this year. So we're looking forward to that. So make sure you're subscribed. You've turned on that notification bell so that you are notified when we go live for these postcasts. I mentioned some stats that tell the story, some stats that show you just how on earth the Jets lose these football games, because I'm still left wondering how this happened. Because watching the game, I got Red Zone on one screen, I got the Jets game here on the tablet in front of me taking notes, and watching this game, and just feels like the Jets are in control. Defense is making plays, offense is just moving the ball down the field, but finish is the name of the game. The Jets were unable to do that, specifically in the second half. The Jets haven't punted in the game. They didn't punt in the game. Here's a tweet from Mitch Samini, who covers the team. They have not punted and have only scored 9 points. They'd be the first team in the last 25 seasons to not punt in a game, but be held to under 10 points. Now, the caveats there being they went for it on fourth down a bunch, even in their own area, in their own end of the field. They're trying to make things happen. They're a 4-10 football team. So there is no real urgency to punt. There is no real reason to send your special teams out there. You're not playing for a lot. So you can try to maybe play a little bit more on the edge, play a little bit more risk. You embrace more risk, right, when you're a 4-10 football team, and the Jets kind of did that a bunch today. But to not punt in the game and only have 9 points to show for it, be held under 10 points, is crazy. And to get into the finish mentality, in the first quarter, the Jets, 6 first downs, 99 yards, and a touchdown. The rest of the game, and this was from Connor Hughes with about maybe 10 minutes or so left in the game of real time, not in game time. In the 3 quarters since they started, 11 first downs, 222 yards, and 3 points. There's the game. Start well, you didn't finish. And They didn't finish the drive at the end of the first half. That drive only ended in a field goal. And you start to drive in the second half, and you go right down the field, 14 plays, 58 yards, taking almost 10 minutes off the clock. And what happens? You're able to move the ball, and you're able to get down into the red zone. And what happens? Well, what we come to expect with the New York Jets. Penalties. Big play, taken off the board. Reset. Gain a little bit of ground, try to pick up the first down, boom, penalty. I believe that was the drive where they had multiple penalties of ineligible men down the field, wiping away big plays that allowed them to move down the field. And then I have zero issue. Let me just make something clear. I don't know if any of you feel the same way. Zero issue with the Jets' aggressiveness in today's game. You're not playing for anything. A win or a loss doesn't change anything for you in the standings. You're not playing for a playoff spot. It's not lose or go home. We're going to play it like we play a game of Madden. We're going to go for it on every fourth down. I don't need to punt. This isn't real. It doesn't mean anything. Let's go. And you've got Aaron Rodgers under center. You're going to go for it. You're going to make plays. And so I have zero issue with the aggressiveness that we saw from the New York Jets throughout this game. And I have zero issue with the aggressiveness that we saw on this drive in particular. I mean, they moved the ball right down the field, right? And they get the ball inside the 20-yard line. So they're in the red zone. This is where they got to finish. And they get to a 4th and 4. And they make the decision to go for it. Zero issue with that. I know it's 9-6. You kick a field goal, you're up 12-6. A touchdown, unless they miss the extra point. And we saw both kickers miss extra points. We saw the Jets kicker miss a field goal in this game. So kicks were going all over the place. But a touchdown and an extra point, and you're losing. So it's less than a one-possession game. I had zero issue with trying to punch it in, try to score a touchdown, try to keep the drive alive. What I did have a problem with, what was a bit of a question mark, was the play call. It's 4th and 4. It's not 4th and goal. It's not 4th and we got to get it into the end zone. It's 4th and 4. Pick up a couple yards, keep the chains moving, reset, drop a couple new plays. And instead, Aaron Rodgers takes a one-on-one shot on a fade route to the back pylon for Davante Adams. And listen, Aaron Rodgers can make that throw. Davante Adams can make that catch. I'm not saying that the skill levels of the two players involved in the play are not able to execute there. But it's 4th and 4. We got to have it. We can't be just throwing the ball up for a 50-50 ball and 1, hope that we come down with it, or 2, hope that we get a penalty. There are a lot more high probability plays that we can run. Again, we didn't have to get into the end zone. Just pick up a couple yards, keep the chains moving, keep the offense on the field. You're rolling. You're rolling. I mean, this drive up until this point was 58 yards, 10 minutes off the clock. You picked up right where you left off in the first half. First half, you're moving the ball up and down the field. You only had 3 drives in the first half. 2 of them were 14 plays plus. You took 14 minutes off the clock just on those 2 drives in the first half. You were moving the ball. You were getting everybody involved. There was flow. There was rhythm, everything to it. Keep the line moving. Keep things in flow. And instead, it felt like we took, out of all the options we had, a low percentage play to take a shot to the end zone, where instead we could have just run mesh, get something out over the middle, get it to a tight end in space. Bootlegs all over the place in this game for the Jets. They were creating space for their tight ends. They were creating space for the running backs. Garrett Wilson was open a bunch. I mean, there was something that we had on that play sheet that was a more high probability play to pick up 4 yards, to pick up 5 yards, than taking a goal line fade, taking a shot to the end zone. I did not like that. I like the decision to go for it. I like the aggressiveness when you're 4-10. I like trying to keep the offense on the field. That's the strength right now of your team. You got Aaron Rodgers under center. You've been playing good football the last couple of weeks. I love it. I just hate the play call. And from there, it kind of all went downhill for this team. I mean, let's look at their drives the remainder of the game. A fumble on their next drive, 3 plays. Turnover on downs, 4 plays. And then the missed field goal that could have made it 19-12. That's the game right there. You try to go for it in a spot that I have no issue with you going for it, but you throw the ball up, and there are a higher percentage play that we could have picked in that spot to try to keep the line moving. So out of the mistakes that came out of this game, that's the big one for me, because I just hate that play call. I hate calling a fade on 4th and 4. If it's 4th and goal, maybe I can understand it. You try to draw the penalty, but 4th and 4, you've got the middle of the field to yourself. You don't have to get into the end zone. Let's go with a more high percentage play than the one that we did. And from there, they really were never able to recover. The Rams kick a field goal on their next drive, and then they go touchdown field goal their next 2 drives, and you're down 19-9. All of a sudden, a game that you felt in full control of. Moving the ball, defense playing well. You had a turnover early in the first half from Tony Adams. Glad he started this game instead of being benched by the owner. He makes a big play. You have injuries galore, which we'll get to here in a second, and yet you're still able to play this aggressive. You're still able to make plays the way that you were making them, and you make, I think, a poor decision in the play call on fourth down, and everything kind of goes downhill from there. That was really disappointing. We've got injuries and some takeaways from this offense, because for the third straight week, I think the offense played better, but it wasn't enough, and it wasn't enough in a big way, and so we will get to that here on the other side. The NFL playoffs right around the corner. They're almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown. I've got a bunch of touchdown props out there right now as Red Zone is kicking into the second half. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Back here on the Locked On Jets postcast, make sure you stay tuned to the Locked On Jets podcast feed. John will have even more big picture thoughts. Third straight game where Aaron Rodgers puts up some decent numbers. The final line for him in today's game, 256 yards, the one touchdown, doesn't turn the ball over. There's going to be a big picture conversation of, is Aaron Rodgers playing well enough down the stretch? Did so against Miami, did so against Jacksonville in the win, played well enough today for the Jets to win, even though they came up short. They fell to the Rams. It's going to be a big picture conversation about whether or not he should return. We will not get to that here on this show. John will have you covered with all the big picture conversations on the Locked On Jets podcast. So if you're listening to us, make sure that you are also tapped in the podcast feed to that as well. Injuries piled up for this team. They already didn't have Quinnen Williams going into this game, which I thought was just going to be devastating. I thought Kyren Williams was going to run for 200. I thought he was going to get into the end zone multiple times. I thought it was going to be a long day for the New York Jets defense because, let's face it, they have not been a very stout run defense with Quinnen Williams in there, but you take out the best guy that they have on that defensive line, their best player on their defense, you worry about the holes that that's going to create. And with McVay, with Stafford, with Kyren Williams, you felt like you were going up against the perfect opponent to take advantage of that. And you saw early in this game that the Rams were creative. There's a lot of motion. There's a lot of bootlegs. There's just a lot of just stuff that they throw at you, smoke and mirrors that you have to try to decipher, and it put some of the Jets defenders into a bind. They played really well, and they surprised me with how well the run defense played in this game. Now, again, Kyren Williams still rushed for 122 yards, but he did a lot of that late. That first half, they really buckled down. Again, it's why it was a surprise that it was only 9-6 going into halftime, and why early in the third quarter you look up, or late in the third quarter you look up, and this game's tied. And early in the fourth quarter, the Rams were taking the lead, because it didn't feel like that type of game. The Jets were playing well defensively. They were making plays. Their offense was moving the ball. It wasn't just a bunch of 3-and-outs. And it was surprising to see that you look up at this game and the Jets were losing. So you already had Q in this game. You lose Sauce in the middle of the game, and he sits down with an injury. We don't know the specifics of it, but didn't return to the game. So you know that was a big deal. You, at one point, thought maybe Rodgers was banged up. He got worst thing you can have when you're rooting for your team, watching your quarterback, is the pile just fall on top of the quarterback, and you lose sight of where your quarterback is. You don't know where he is in the pile. That's where ankles get rolled up on. That's where knees get bent in the wrong direction. That's where just all sorts of bad things happen. A pile forms, the quarterback is in the pile, and he falls into it like it's a black hole, like he's getting sucked into another dimension. It was just the worst thing that you can see, especially when you're dealing with a 41-year-old quarterback who's coming off of an Achilles injury, and a guy that we don't know necessarily the specifics, but we know in the early part of the season was battling a bunch of injuries. The worst thing you can see. He gets up, he limps over to the sidelines, he tries to brush off the Jets, trying to get him to the medical tent. Tyrod Taylor's warming up on the sidelines, and you just thought, oh boy, here we go. Now Tyrod Taylor's going to have to save the day, but Rodgers wasn't going to allow that to be the case, comes right back on the field for the ensuing drive. After the Rams took over on a short field, it was a fourth down play. The Jets didn't pick up. Rams had a short field, and that's when they punched it to 19-9 in the football game. So then Rodgers gets hurt, and then Olu gets hurt with the foot injury and gets carted off. And I want to use this chance, this time right here, to talk about the offensive line in this game, because I thought they played excellent. They opened up holes in the running game for Brees, who looked much better than he did last week. End of the day, let's see here, 14 carries for 52 yards, Holes were open for Isaiah Davis, for Braylon Allen, whose usage I still don't get. I don't understand why he's not the back in these short yardage, 3rd and short, 4th and short situations. Why we're not just giving the ball to the big bruising back that we drafted to be our big bruising back. I don't know. Somebody's going to have to explain this to me. Just another example of the Jets, just the coaching's just not there. It's just not complete. There are moments of it, there are phases of it, but it's just not there. It's why they're going to have a very extensive head coaching search, and this coaching staff's going to look a lot different next season. But the offensive line did great at opening up holes in the running game. They did great giving Rodgers protection. He only had 1 sack in the game. It was the play that he got hurt on. And other than that, he had all sorts of time to make plays, all sorts of time to go through progressions. And if it's not there because the coverage is great, boom, he was able to hit the dump offs. He's able to hit Jeremy Rucker, able to hit Tyler Conklin, able to find Breece Hall to the backfield as his checkdowns. He was able to just stand back there. He had oodles and oodles of time. He had all the time in the world to be able to make plays and orchestrate the offense. And when you have Devontae Adams, when you have Garrett Wilson, when you have Tyler Conklin, when you have Breece Hall, when you have this offense, you have the ability to, if you're going to give the quarterback time, those guys are going to find a way to get open. Even if the play breaks down, those guys are too talented. They're going to find a way to get open. And you saw that. It just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Garrett Wilson ended the day with 7 targets, had 6 catches, too little, too late. Early in this game, he had a couple of catches and a couple of targets, and then that was it. He went cold. And during a week in which there are a bunch of reports out there that he might be requesting a trade this offseason, not sure that's going to help that case. Got to find a way to get him more involved. He's too talented to only have 3 targets around the 3rd, 4th quarter of this football game, especially when the offense was moving. It cannot just be the Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams show. It can't. Adams is great, but older player. Rodgers has to get more guys involved. And you saw it, right? The first drive, it was there. Garrett was involved. Devontae was involved. Conklin was involved. Running the football, like we mentioned earlier. They had everybody involved. They just weren't doing that consistently enough. There were drives where it was just Adams. And they just needed to do a little bit more in that regard. So, offensive line was great. Got to get Garrett Wilson more involved. And a real tough look for Allen Lazard today with a couple of drops that he had. And for a guy who I believe leads the league in drops among wide receivers, and he missed 5 games, that says a lot. That those problems that you thought were going to go away when Rodgers came here haven't gone away at all. That you thought once Rodgers and him were back on the same page, he was going to be a different wide receiver. Doesn't really feel like that's the case at all. And somehow you look up in the 4th quarter and the Jets are losing this football game and they fall to 4-11. That's kind of the story of the New York Jets though, right? I mean, this is a different way. This was a different way of losing the football game than the way that we've seen this year. Most games, they are close going into the 4th quarter. They have a lead at halftime. They come out. They have a lead going into the 4th quarter. They blow it. And then they have an opportunity to drive down the field with Aaron Rodgers and they make a mistake. This game, they were in full control of this game most of the first half, halfway through the 3rd quarter since the Rams didn't touch the ball. I mean, they had control of this game. And then over the last quarter and a half, they got beat. They could not finish. That was the message that Jeff Ulbrich gave the broadcast coming out to the second half, that finish. Didn't finish in the first half, and then your first drive to come out of the second half, you get down into the red zone, and you don't finish. That's the story of the New York Jets. When you are not a good football team, you find ways to lose. You find new ways to drop football games. Today was a different version for the New York Jets, and I don't know how they lost this football game today. I watched a team in the first half that looked like they were going to spoil the Rams' party and make them have to earn it next week when they take on the Cardinals on primetime. And instead, they just kind of rolled over in the second half, and they just couldn't get it done. And they didn't punt, and they couldn't score more than 10 points. I don't know what to say at this point. Just they find new ways to lose football games, and they fall to 4-11, and we will see where that sets them up for the draft after the end of the day, where that sets them up for Tankathon. So the Rams defeat the Jets 19-9, and there are 2 more games left on the calendar for the New York Jets. We will be here after each of those games for a Locked On Jets postcast. It is next week. It'll be against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. We will be here to recap that AFC East clash that could mean a lot for the Bills, depending on how the Chiefs play on Christmas, or it might not mean a ton. It will mean a ton to the New York Jets. AFC East clashes between these 2 teams are always exciting, and we will be here to break it all down. We appreciate you joining us here on the Locked On Jets postcast. Make sure you subscribe. You turn on that notification bell here for the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. We've got you covered. Knicks, Jets, Giants, Mets, Yankees. We've got you covered here on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel, so make sure you give us a follow, a subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. The Jets fall. It will not be a 2-game winning streak. I'm still not sure how it happened. I'm going to hit the end stream button and think about it for a little bit, but a great first half, a great start to the second half, and just going quietly into that good night, the final quarter and a half as the Rams defeat the Jets 19-9 in a game in which the Jets do not punt. Hope everybody has a great holiday week. We are back next week after the Jets take on the Bills. See you, everybody.